Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing Content Extravaganza, and if you haven't been here before, you won't yet know that I'm on a mission to give you everything you need to be successful in your business, providing, of course, what you need to be successful in your business is to know more about and be implementing more efficiently, effectively, and enthusiastically sales and marketing in your business, which is, of course, what you need if you're going to be successful, because you need more customers, and you need more customers more profitably. That will give you the nicer car, the nicer house, the nicer holidays, the nicer retirement, all the nice things that you deserve in your life if you are running your own business or pursuing a career in marketing. So what goes on here is I'm giving you everything I know about marketing as part of the What the series. I pull in anyone I can find with experience of sales and marketing to share with you, to support you to be more successful in your business. We look at the marketing news every other week and we speculate wildly about what that might mean for you in your business and your marketing career. I review the very best and the very worst of marketing content on the internet, and I review products, services, and books, and I'm going to start thinking out loud. So there's lots going on here, all designed to support you to be more successful in your business. So if that sounds like it might be interesting or useful, please take a second to like, share, subscribe, comment, get involved, because that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey. Now, today is Talk Marketing, and so I have a guest for you. And today's guest is a graduate of both the University of Huddersfield and the University of Lincoln. She has achieved a BA in dramatics and theatrical arts, and a master's in creative writing. She will be completing her PhD in 2023, at which point she will become a Doctor of Words. She is currently writer, mental health advocate, and committee member at This Is Me Yorkshire, travel writer at House of Coco Magazine, lecturer and module leader at the University of Huddersfield, and owner and freelance copywriter at Demi Aspey Writer. What you may not know about her is that she aspires to write scripts for TV. She produces dark, female-driven drama scripts peppered with dry comedic wit, and once tripped over Sir Patrick Stewart off of Star Trek. Today's guest is Demi Aspey. I made a horrible mess of that, Demi. I'm sorry.
That's absolutely fine.
Hi. How are you doing?
Very, very well. I'm doing great. You just listed off all the things I'm doing there. I just remembered how much I need to do this winter to prepare.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about that. I don't mean to be putting you under any undue pressure, but you present beautifully is what you do. It's really nice when I think this is what you do. Like, I should have it open so I can actually frame it exactly the way you framed it. But you write really interesting and compelling and refreshing copy. That's what you do. You've got a very definite style, which I think is hugely refreshing in 2022. I think, I'm talking too much. I'm going to shut up and let you say some stuff in a minute. I think people have no idea how to talk about themselves and what to say. And weirdly, because copy has been really in demand for the last 15, 20 years, it's had a real resurgence. People are really bad at writing copy. You describe what you do as giving your content character to sell proper good stuff. And you really do that. So well done, you.
Oh, thank you. You're going to make me blush. I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? People, when we're not good about talking about ourselves, and that's hence why I have a job writing copy for other people. Otherwise, I'd be out of business. But it's really hard to sort of like dig deep, and authentic is a word that gets thrown around a lot. But what does authentic actually mean? I think with the rise of social media as well, people are very much trying to find their voice online.
Yes.
And I have this background in script writing. Obviously, that's my passion. I'm teaching it now. I love it so much. It's a very self-taught art, but I always found it was great to be able to find that character within everybody. And I think I use that as that kind of approach for a lot of my clients and a lot of people I speak with, because when you associate with, say, a character, like sometimes I'll ask the question, like what TV show character or film character would you liken yourself to? And as soon as they think about that, we can kind of tap into that to try and help create this voice around like how they want to be, perhaps in front of the world, to other people and such. And from there we start to like really tap into how is it that you actually want to talk, like, not in a fake way or anything, but people start to open up a lot more because we self-edit and we feel very, I don't know, like scared. It's a confidence issue maybe. And I just think I try to be as open as possible, so that helps influence other people, especially the people that I work with.
Excellent. 100%. That's good. To answer your question, what does authentic mean? It means of undisputed origin. Genuine is what it means. But you're right. Everyone is talking about authenticity because I think we are starved of authenticity in 2022. And businesses especially, maybe more kind of business to business businesses, really have no idea. I think the issue is partly that businesses don't really understand the value that they add in the world. So they end up talking about things that aren't particularly useful or relevant. And they talk about them in such a weird way. I honestly think copywriting is one of the hardest things to do in the whole of sales and marketing, because I've tried and I can't do it. So maybe it's horses for courses. What do you think?
I think it is hard because, like you say, I think it's really overdone as a lot of sales. You know, most people go on the whole idea of like sell your USP or say what you offer to a client, and a lot of the time is just like, well, that's expected. Like, you know, we're offering great customer service. Well, wouldn't you expect that from like the service that you're getting from somebody? Like, businesses don't, like you say, really know what they're presenting to the world, because we're an oversaturated market. No matter what you're doing, there's always somebody else that's doing it and possibly doing it better than you. And it's almost like, well, what do I say about myself to stand out? And I think that's where we're starting to shift more into brand personality and the actual like human side behind why a business does what it does, and why that term authentic gets thrown around quite a lot, because people want to see past just the products and even the benefits often of the products. They care more about the people behind it, like why they're doing what they're doing, the ethics behind it, the values, things like that. And a lot of people, a lot of brands, a lot of business owners don't often see that as an important task to do and understand about themselves before they go into the world and go, here's this fantastic product, please buy it from me. I think people's mindsets have shifted before they make that purchase, even if it is a business to business sale or a business to consumer sale or anything.
Yeah, I think two things. I think firstly, we're getting ahead of ourselves. There's something else we need to clear up before we start talking intelligently about copy and how people present themselves. And then the other thing is, I think you're absolutely right, but we will come to that 100%. What we need to clear up is, if you are really an aspiring TV writer and you are producing these dark female-driven drama scripts, surely tripping up Patrick Stewart isn't a great career move. You know.
It wasn't my best move, but as he said, it was quite all right, love. And his typical Patrick Stewart, and love, he used typical Yorkshire man. He's from Murfield. It was in my... Yeah, he's from Murfield. So I met him because he was the Chancellor of the University of Huddersfield when I did my undergrad. And obviously I did a undergrad in theatre and drama and all that jazz. And he came in one session to teach. He's Professor Patrick Stewart as opposed to Professor Xavier or whatever his name is in X-Men. And he came in and he gave us like a lecture and helped like, you know, with the performances that were going on. And then as we were leaving, we got up. He was literally sat next to me for 3 hours. All I could smell was his black coffee. And I was like, this is fun. But yeah, I got up and I was walking ahead and then just stopped all of a sudden, not realizing Patrick Stewart's behind me. And then a little tumble happened. I'm like, oh, crap, I've just almost like taken out Patrick Stewart. I was like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, it's quite all right, love. I was like, oh, okay. I'm just going to go hide now.
Okay, cool. All right. So that doesn't sound so terrible. Maybe he won't recognize you from a script, maybe, that will deny you an opportunity to be a script writer.
No, he likely has long forgotten about my existence. So it's all okay.
Okay, good. The other thing I want to mention, I don't know if this is cool or not, but it's just interesting because it's kind of topical. Have you seen what's going on with Jennifer Lawrence currently? Is her name Jennifer Lawrence from Hunger Games?
I've seen bits and bobs, but I'm not 100% sure of the narrative around everything.
Oh,
I've
she
had
did
a
an
little
interview where she claimed it is Jennifer Lawrence. She did an interview where she claimed that she was the first ever female action lead in 2012. So she doesn't really seem to know that there is actually quite a strong history in
It's a
cinema
huge one.
of strong.
One of my favourites being Sigourney Weaver in Alien, which back in the 70s, in fact, Sigourney
Yes.
Weaver like shaped the future of sort of women in those roles, and it wasn't even advertised as such because they didn't believe that if they put her at the forefront of Alien that it would market or sell as well. But
Yes.
actually, she's one of the most prolific female leads in an action horror thriller genre there is.
Yeah. And maybe maybe one of the most successful ever action horror kind of genre. Maybe the most successful ever. It feels to me like the world really needs script writers currently. And maybe it really needs, because it seems to me, and Quentin Tarantino, I saw him being interviewed the other day, like the standard of cinema is so poor right now. Like they're just regurgitating all these action, Marvel, whatever the other one is. So I think the world needs you to be successful in producing these scripts.
Oh, thank you. I think one of the things with screenwriting at the moment is we're lacking story. Because of like the advancements in technology and such, like you are seeing a lot of like these Marvel, these epics, these big cinema, like they look amazing, they're brilliant, but what's beneath them is pretty empty. And people like the best thing about Tarantino, love him or hate him, is regardless of the film looking amazing, the stories are always really, really strong. The
Yes.
characters are all really fleshed out. Like there's not a single character in those movies which are weak. Like they're really three-dimensional. And I think a lot of stuff that's coming out in the cinema, like you say, it's either been done before, it's just trying to make a box office hit, just get bums on seats, all that sort of thing. They're not really looking at the longevity of a story. And I think we're just like, so I think the rise of Netflix, Amazon, things like that, it's just a churning machine as opposed to actually creating quality work, which is why I think the shift to TV is where TV is becoming like the stronger in terms of like story and in terms of what like where people audiences are getting hooked as opposed to cinema. I don't know what
Yes.
you think about that, but TV seems well, I know for a fact it is. That's what my PhD studies in.
Yeah. I think that digital is robbing us of so much, and we're not really waking up to the fact that it's going on. Like, for example, I remember getting lost and having adventures, and you can't actually physically get lost anymore because we've all got Google Maps, which will tell us where to go on our phones. Like, I remember when I was a kid, before you were even conceived of, um, collecting albums and like sorting them into alphabetical order and having these things and going to record shops and buying records because you like the cover on the front, you know what I mean? Whereas now we have Spotify and it can just order everything. And I remember like TV events, do you know what I mean? I remember like if the final of the snooker was on a Sunday, everyone at school the next day was talking about this one thing because there was so little to choose from. And I remember sitting up with my dad when I was a kid and watching like westerns like that would continue after the news. Do you know what I mean? So I think digital is making it everything so much more vanilla is the problem. But at the same time, there's kind of this trend, I suppose, in like dark Scandinavian stuff or the Korean stuff with what's it called? The Korean one that's just coming around for the second episode on Netflix, second series.
Oh, is it the
Squid
oh
Games.
Squid
Squid.
Game? Yeah.
Yeah. So it is kind of interesting, but it's not. Okay, and then it's interesting because I think AI is coming for your job at the moment. I don't know if you're aware of this. You must be aware of this.
Yeah, I am aware of it, and good luck to it. I say. In fact, I was having this debate with my partner the other day about it because I've checked out these AI tools because you want to be aware of what's trying to steal your job. So I've had a look at them
Yeah.
just to see how effectively they work. And on a surface level, yeah, okay, they create words, they create copy, but it's really really bland. A lot of the time it doesn't make sense. A lot of the time it's literally because it's an AI tool, it's pulling the information from the internet, it's not really like creating anything like with any substance, if you know what I mean. And
Or any
I like I was saying to my
authenticity.
partner, Yeah, and I was saying to my partner, I was like, the one thing that it's lacking is it doesn't have the originality. Like anything can write, again, it'll do that thing where it's like, oh, give you some USPs on the product. Well, it'll give you them, but that's not what you're looking to do. If you want to do that one, just go copy somebody else. That's essentially what it's doing, but like pulling together the words to create something new. It's just beyond plagiarism, just before plagiarism, I'd say. But that's
Yes.
just an idea of where it's at the moment. Does it mean that it's not going to become like AI? I mean, I'm like AI. That's how you get Terminators. So,
Yeah.
but potentially it could come after my job. Will it be able to create and craft anything with like that human level of emotion? Or and emotion is a big thing in copywriting and in any form of writing. I think to be able to produce that like how a human brain would, well, I'm not a scientist, but I feel like there's always going to be lacking something. I think these are really good tools for businesses who don't necessarily have the funds to employ like a copywriter or employ someone full time in the marketing department. They work really effectively for, short form copy if you're looking for something for social media, or maybe just putting words together for the starter of a blog, perhaps. But in terms of the actual depth of copywriting and the whole strategy around it and what you're trying to achieve, I think it'll be a very, very long time before it can even get close.
Okay, good. All right, I'm glad we cleared that up. Maybe we'll talk about that some more because I think similarly. But what we should do is we should bring some order to this, okay? Because not you, me, maybe we're going in too many different directions. So, as you know, there are only 5 questions. The first question is, how are you qualified to talk to us about your specialist subject being copywriting? The second question is, who do you work with? How do you add value to their lives? The third question is, what is your recommendation for people who want to get better at writing copy? The fourth question is, what should people read, or what media should they consume? And then the fifth question is, who can you throw under the bus who might enjoy or maybe even just endure to have a conversation like this with me? So if we start with question number 1, how are you qualified to talk to us about copywriting?
It's one of those where I always feel like am I qualified to talk about this? And I mean, I went full time as a copywriter with my business in the past 6 to 7 months, and prior to that, it was really just a skill I picked up and self taught myself. The qualification behind it is, I'm practically a doctor of philosophy, yeah, PhD in creative writing. And I think creative writing is really the heart and the core of copywriting. I worked in so many roles in different businesses, from hospitality to working in corporate roles with like marketing experience, sales experience, customer service experience. Like I've done a whole variety of things, and within that, I've had to write a lot of the time. So I've picked up a lot about what consumers need, what businesses need, how they talk, how they think, how they act, what their like goals are. And obviously being a writer to the level I am and how long I have been writing, which is near enough my entire life, I've adapted that and I've learned the skill, and copywriting is just what's sort of come out of that as a natural sort of progression in my life. And I love the creativity behind it. And like I say, sort of fusing together my educational skill of script writing, again, something I self-taught myself up to a point, into that experience within the business world, and creating a new way in which I can approach the marketing world and sort of bring a little flavor of difference, I suppose, with my own voice, and help adapt that for other businesses.
Okay, cool. So you might be over, actually, in terms of like traditional qualification, you've got a degree, you've got a master's, you're nearing the end of your PhD. You might be the most qualified person I've spoken to. Okay, so in terms of having certificates, I think you might, well, once you've achieved the PhD, you might be the only PhD I've spoken to. The point is, I think that you've hit on something that's really interesting and useful, which is people don't understand the breadth of the value that they offer in the world. They don't, well, let's not even start there. They don't understand the value, because somebody put it to me really well recently. They said that being in business or marketing your business effectively is about being able to read the label on the jar that you're in. And people can't really do that. Do you know what I mean? Because they are in the business of solving these issues, whatever the issue might be that the product or the service resolves, they're not able to put themselves in the shoes of the people who will actually buy it. And then businesses are really ego-driven, which is really dangerous. So they think that they should. The most important thing is the thing they think is most important. Like the most difficult thing for them to achieve or produce is the most interesting thing, but it's not necessarily. Where am I going with this? I'm rambling a little bit. Where I'm going with this is what you've done is you've understood the breadth of the value proposition, which isn't limited to what the product is. It isn't limited to what the product does, but it also includes the character of the business. And so your characterful copy, I think, achieves a number of things. It stands out and it breaks through. Do you know what I mean? It's like it reaches people because you're talking but I'm talking about this, but you know about it because you've done it. So how did you get to that situation? That's what I'm interested to know.
I think it does come a lot from experiences and from the jobs and the roles I've worked. I have always had like a real keen eye, or maybe an intrigue into how business actually works, even when I wasn't necessarily in a role to be sort of questioning certain things and be like, well, why are we doing this? Or why aren't we treating the products in this way? Or why aren't we treating the customers in this way? And I was always very frontline. So I'd be in like maybe an account management role, or I'd be a manager of a restaurant, or I'd be the person kind of selling these products and these things. And also between the business owners who are trying to sell it and put it out there, and the consumers or the customers who are taking it. And you get like both ends of the scale of like, well, you need to do this and you do this. And then you've got the customer being like, well, we don't like this and such. And so you're always trying to come up with solutions as to, well, how do you fuse those two together to achieve what the business is looking to achieve, and also deliver what the customer is looking for. And I think when it came to like the copywriting side of things, I always encourage people to just think a little bit deeper about what it is and why it is that they're offering what they're offering. Like you say, I think a lot of people get stuck in their own heads, or they miss the actual point of what they're trying to achieve. Or are they trying to like create a legacy with a brand as opposed to just sort of like hit a financial goal? And who do they want to present themselves as? So a lot of things around personal brand is coming out at the moment as well, where people aren't just wanting to be business owners, they're wanting to be thought leaders, they're wanting to actually create some kind of legacy around what they're doing in the world. And I think a lot of the times that fusion between like customer and business, there's not always like that much of a connection there. It is like almost once we've sold it, leave it. And I don't know, I just feel like I like to go in and like make people care perhaps a little bit more. Not suggesting that people don't care, but actually like really put themselves in their client or their customer's shoes and think about how they're presenting themselves, and actually get in their heads, like you say, rather out of their heads and into their client and customers' heads, to think about what is it they actually want, why is it they'll be returning, and then through copy and content, you can answer those questions before they've even asked it, which just builds that trust between both parties. I hope that answers the question. I feel like I went on a tangent there.
No, that does answer the question. But now I'm thinking we might be segueing into like question number 2. Are we? Is it too early to do that? I wonder.
No, we can go.
Do I believe you're qualified to talk to us about writing copy is the thing. The thing is, do you want the good news?
Yeah.
I do think you're qualified to talk to us about writing copy, because I've read some of your copy. You look so relieved.
Yeah.
You look aghast that I even suggested that you might not be qualified. So let's go then to question number 2. So question number 2 is, who do you work with and how do you add value to their lives? No, there is something else I want to talk about the actual business of writing copy. Canva. Do you know Canva? The online, they've always been a design element kind of business, like, making design accessible. Similarly, for people who don't have budget. But they've just released their AI copywriting service. So this is what tells me that it's going kind of mainstream. And a friend of mine who's perfectly successful, runs a couple of businesses, But he is on LinkedIn saying, look, I just used AI to write this copy and I think it's great and I think it's perfectly acceptable, which I think is a really weird look, because it's kind of saying, look, this computer can express my 30 years of experience in 60 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Or something as useful. So there's something about this AI copywriting that I just kind of want to understand more about.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I wasn't 100% aware of I'd heard things about the Canva AI, and I do use Canva as well for like design things, and so it's great that they're offering some help. But I think you touched upon it there with the fact of, well, why are people using it? And I think a lot of the times, if people are wanting it to replicate what they can actually say or the value they can offer, what's the purpose behind that? Is it to speed up time? Is it to save time? Is it to save money? Is it to, why are they using it? Or is it because they don't really have do they know what they actually want to say to the world? If someone's posting on LinkedIn like saying, oh, these aren't my genuine thoughts, or AI has done it, then what's the purpose behind that? Like, are you trying to build community? Are you trying to build engagement? Are you trying to do, because there's always a goal beyond the copy. And if you're using the AI to create it, well, how far between yourself and the copy, is it genuinely what you're wanting to say? And will you be able to respond afterwards from that? Do you understand what's actually being created? All that, there's so many questions around it, which I just feel like, it depends what people are ultimately trying to achieve. These tools are useful. They can be helpful, especially for people who perhaps don't feel overly confident with the writing process. I think they can be, a bit of a leg up onto that. But I don't know. I'm curious.
Okay, I'm curious as well. And I'm really glad I asked you, because you've answered that like a really strong copywriter with lots of questions. Do you know what I mean? Like exactly what is going on. So what I think is going on is I think it's lazy. Well, I think there's two things going on. The first thing is that these platforms have convinced the world that they need to be in the business of producing content or producing copy. Mm-hmm. And this is what a friend of mine calls like the 21st century social media swindle, that they've turned us all into copywriters, content producers, without really paying us any of us very much money. So that's the first thing that's going on. And then the second thing that's going on is clearly no one's got the time or the energy for that or the skill for that. So then I think it's laziness, where they're like, okay, well, I can put a few sentences into this tool and it's going to give me the 600 words I need for a blog post or a social media post or something else. But what I really feel about that is that the world really doesn't need more copy at this point. I think we've got enough copy. What we really need is good copy. Do you know what I mean? Like, we could really do with having some much better copy than is available. And I'm not sure if this is the way it's going to get produced. Like you say, what relation does it bear to the writer even?
I think it's quality over quantity, isn't it? And I think what social media entices us all to believe is that we all have thoughts and opinions and they're all valid and we all have to talk about things all of the time, when actually, if you don't have anything good to say or anything new to say or anything to offer, don't say it. Like, there's value in being minimal. Like, and I think a lot of the time people are feeling pressure, especially in, like, if they're a business leader or owner or they have a brand, to be throwing out content constantly to sort of keep up with the Joneses, as it were, like keep up with everybody else. And so people are turning to stuff like AI tools or quick tools that create this content just to be putting it out. But then they're not actually thinking behind, well, what's the purpose of me putting it out? And it's a bit like, I was doing like quite a lot of content on LinkedIn. That's how I've helped like build up my own business. Everything has been written by myself, would make sense. I'm a copywriter. But over the past few weeks, I've been so busy with things that I kind of thought, oh, well, I need to produce content. I need to keep it going out. And I thought, well, what's the purpose behind it? That's only going to make me really, really stressed at the moment. I don't really need, I've got enough clients. I don't really need to be doing this. But in my head, I had this idea that, well, everybody in my industry is posting every single day. So I have to keep posting every single day. And I was like, well, I don't have anything good to offer right now or any value to offer to my community or audience or anything. So I'm just not going to. And I mean, that took a lot for me to make that choice. And I'm a copywriter and I work in marketing, but I think a lot of people don't think that way. They go, no, I must keep putting it out, no matter if like that thought process has stopped and there's nothing good to say. So they'll use a tool like this just to keep churning out the content, even though there's absolutely no value in it. And actually, I think it's the opposite. I think we need to, like you say, pull back a little bit and just produce really good quality content over just rubbish.
Yeah, 100% believe that, because somebody else that I spoke to spoke about this being the fraud of the broadcast industry, that everybody needs to know about you all of the time. Do you know what I mean? Which isn't necessarily true. What you really need to be doing is making sure that the people who might get value from the thing that you offer and actually give you money to do it know about you when they need to know about you. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference. So, and whilst we're on it, like, is now a good time to talk about it? My life has improved dramatically. LinkedIn might be the one social media that I refer to the most now, because I kind of cleaned it up and I made sure I'm getting notifications from the people I'm interested in, blah, blah, blah. Because prior to that, the standard of content on LinkedIn is an absolute abomination. It really is appalling. There's no place in like a business environment. I mean, it's just insane. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, back in April, just before I went full-time freelance, I almost deleted LinkedIn. I thought it was the worst social media platform. I was just like, this is such a drag. It's so boring. And the content is just so two-dimensional. I hated it. I'm a bit like yourself. What I didn't realize was unlocking the sort of power of LinkedIn in the sense of getting involved in communities and with people and connecting with the right sort of people in the right industries, and you see it sort of come to life. And there's this argument at the moment that, you know, LinkedIn's a new Facebook and all this sort of jazz, but I think what we're seeing is a shift between businesses being really stuffy corporate types, only sharing their product and selling their product, and, you know, something really kind of dull, as opposed to people actually becoming more human on there and sharing a bit more life stories. And it can go to the extreme, as with anything. But I feel like there's a lot more creativity on LinkedIn now. I feel like there's a lot more discussion, there's a lot more openness, and people aren't afraid to share more, sometimes in a little bit too much. But now I find LinkedIn to be one of the best social media platforms there is, and it's probably the one I give the most attention to, one, because I'm running a business and that's the best place to be. But I find it more educational. I find it, you know, I learn a lot about what I'm doing by looking at what other people in my industry are doing and following other people's brands and how they're doing things differently. And I think when used right, it's a really great hub and a really great place for anybody who's trying to build business or just connect with a community, or is a freelancer and perhaps doesn't, you know, have a work team around them. Like, I've met some amazing people on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Yourself,
I'm
is
with
it?
you. It's definitely this social media that's getting the most of my attention at the moment. It definitely is. This AI thing, I think the only justification for it really is if you use it, like you use it to get like a base, and then you go, so it might enable you to go deeper into a subject. You know what I mean? If you say, okay, here's my topic, here's like, effectively, it might be a research tool. If it goes out and finds like lots of interesting, useful references. Other than that, I think it's abomination. I really am worried about the Terminators like you.
It's not a good research tool, and I can say this as a researcher PhD. A lot of the times it's pulling things from the internet, but you don't know where it's pulling that information. So you end up, like I say, I tried it out just for my own sort of peace of mind, because you want to know, like, what does this thing offer? Is it amazing? Is it going to take? And a lot of the times it's pulling information from wherever it can find it, but it's not fact. It's just looking for those keywords and looking for something relevant that answers the question. But often you're going to have to go and then double check that anyway to make sure it's accurate, in which case you could have just done that yourself and, you
Yes.
know, written something accurately and at least know it's thoroughly researched. And if you're working in business, especially the technical side of stuff, that you just end up doubling your workload for using it. If you are
Yes.
the person in the business, however, who's maybe like two or three people in a business, and you want to have some marketing efforts and the funds aren't there, it can help you get those words on the page. But as a research tool, like you, I think it's an abomination. I don't think it works. It'll probably surpass us and make us eat our words in time, as all these things do. But right now, I think it's a bit of a trapping tool. And I think people need to be really, really cautious of it.
Good. And I'm glad I spoke to someone who's studying a research PhD about that, because that is exactly the right answer. In fact, I did a bit of a master's in digital marketing, and this was a few years ago, but I was shocked at how bad the internet is as a research tool. Like, really, when you are researching something real, I mean, not a holiday in Ibiza, but when you're researching something real, like a principle or a philosophy do you know what I mean? It's like beyond page 2, it all gets kind of irrelevant, is what I found.
It's with everything. I think the problem with the internet is, as we see in the media, is there's so much misinformation on the internet. And if you can't source check correctly and you take something for face value, a lot of the times you're going to find actually that's not the correct information. Like, at my university, it's a bit like, if you can use some online sources, but if it's not a journal or a book or some like proper academic reference from like a reputable source, it's like veto the internet because you just can't. And I think a lot of people can't determine things, which is why so many people just believe anything they see to then go, oh, that's a fact, I believe it now. It's researching is a different skill, and I find it really hard, and I'm at the level I'm at, and there's lots of information out there. It's deciding what's actually correct or useful.
Yes. And I tell you the way I feel about it is like artificial intelligence is like artificial grass. It ain't grass and it ain't intelligence. Do you know what I mean? Like, intelligence is not what computers are good at, is data. So they can store, they can analyze, they can present data. But that's not intelligence. Like, intelligence is data plus experience, plus emotion, plus empathy, plus connection, plus all of these things. Do you know what I mean? So I just worry about the Terminators, because we're getting to a point where if the computer says no, you have absolutely no recourse now. There is no human to be found who can actually support you, I think.
Well, that's it. And then what happens when we rely too heavily on computers, as much we do now? So it's like the idea that people, you don't spell anything. Not like, even my spelling has got, I'm a writer, right? My spelling has got bad because I rely so heavily on the computer to autocorrect me. And I use tools like Grammarly and things like that, which will assist me. But over time, perhaps our skills as human beings are going to weaken. And in that respect, like, what happens to our creativity? What happens to our actual like applied skills if we are relying on something like AI to do it all for us? Because if that then doesn't work, or we get to a point where like we're losing our ability to actually create these things ourselves by being too heavily reliant. And one of the things I'll answer later about how to be sort of better at copywriting, for instance, is to actually do it. And if you don't do it, if you rely on something else, well, you can't ever get better at it. And I don't know, like, I think humans, we like to feel that sense of accomplishment and achievement of actually like learning skills and getting better at something. If we rely too much on technology for everything, where does our motivations come from? Where do we feel satisfied in the work we do? Where that's just a personal input. But I just feel we're going to lose so much from being so heavily reliant on technology and all these tools that we seemingly are making our lives easier, but making us dumber at the same time.
I think so. And I wonder, like, simple things, like when I got my first car with electric windows, I don't know if you know that there were cars without electric windows. My dad said to me that will be the first thing that breaks. I mean, you don't need that, and it'll be the first thing that breaks. And it was probably true. But now I wonder about these taps with sensors. Because if people are growing up and they don't know how to turn on a tap, like, come the apocalypse, how on earth are they going to drill 200 meters down into the earth to get fresh water? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think you're right. I think it's dumbing us down. And the last thing I wanted to say about this artificial intelligence is, no, you're 100% right. You have to do stuff. It's a sense of achievement. I think that's what actually causes people to be happy and satisfied, is a sense that it was a difficult thing, and I was excited and interested enough in it to actually persevere, and I did achieve something, So I think that's the big thing that the internet is stealing from us. Okay,
I
now
think
I'm happy to give you the really good news. Do you want the really good news?
go for it.
Yeah, I think you're eminently qualified to talk to us about producing copy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
You are very welcome. It's true. Okay, so that takes us now properly to question number 2, which is, who do you work with and how do you add value to their lives?
I work with businesses, so mainly businesses. I work with individuals as well. I work with businesses to help with their brands and copywriting content. So that could be a variety from your website copy to blogs and articles to everything in between that they might need words for. Again, I've spoken about it sort of throughout this talk. It's about helping them tap into that character, into that personality, into sort of elevating whatever they're putting on the page or putting into the world and actually making it mean something to them and to their clients. I also work with a fair few marketing agencies as well, which is quite a nice feeling. I freelance for some marketing agencies, but I also help them with their brand and like repositioning some of their ideas, because again, even though they work in the world of marketing and think that they know everything they need to know, because it's their own brand and their own agency, a lot of the times it can be really hard for them to sort of communicate their intentions or their personality behind everything. And like I say, I also work with individuals doing mainly sort of ghostwriting activities for like the likes of LinkedIn, which I suppose makes me the AI for them. But I help them unlock that, the personality, the confidence in being able to post online and build sort of, again, the term personal brand, which is going around quite a bit, but allows people to start talking a bit more openly online and market themselves, when potentially they didn't have maybe the tools or the thinking to, I say thinking, they get a bit lost in their heads about what to talk about and how to like have a strategy around that. So I help guide them. I've ghostwrite posts, we reposition sort of their content pillars and such, all with the idea to hopefully take the reins off and they can sort of go do it themselves eventually, but it helps boost them and get them motivated and get them going.
Okay, fantastic. Right, so the first question I've got 2 questions. Let's go with the first question. The reason I think very often copywriting is so difficult is because copywriters aren't afforded the space to really understand the product, the personality, the tone, the market, all of these things. So whenever it's happened about 3 times to me in my life, thankfully, wherever I've been in a situation where I've had to produce copy, it feels like I've been painted into a corner and left out to dry. Do you know what I mean? You should just know what to talk about and how to talk about it. Now go get on with it. So how do you afford yourself that opportunity to actually win for yourself the space to do that extra work, understanding them, understanding their product, understanding the market, understanding all of that stuff? How does that come about?
It always starts with like the initial like interactions with me. So before I even sort of start with a client, we have like a real deep dive sort of discovery call to understand exactly what they're looking for, and for me to kind of get to know them on a business level, but also on a personal level in terms of sort of what makes them tick, why they're doing what they're doing, why they need my help particularly. And then I make sure I go away and send them enough questions within a brief. And it's not so much a brief like as structured as you'd think. I go away from a discovery call and go, right, I know what they're wanting to produce. I know they want X amount of copy or this over a certain amount of time. I need to now know what questions do I need answering to make my life easier, or what things do I need to know about this brand in order to create this copy. And I want to get it right up front so we can set out some, really good understanding of where we're going with this, what the working relationship is going to be like, and also how free are they for me to. So, for instance, if I do a series of articles for a client, I'll say, do you want to provide me with the information? Are you really strict on like what you want me to talk about here? Or are you wanting me to produce something creatively where you're happy for me to go off, do the research, and then come back and produce a piece of work? However, understand if I produce that and it's absolutely not what you want, with certain reins into, well, you can't just go, no, that's wasted effort because I need to understand exactly what you're looking to produce here. And that seems to work really, really well with clients. And I like to be an open book with them as well. I like them to be able to share ideas with me at any point. Many of my clients send me voice notes like all hours, because they're just like, I've had an idea for something, but I get a real good understanding of their voice and their thought process. So by the time I actually create the copy, it's like, wow, that sounds exactly like I would have said it. And I'm like, well, because I'm listening to how people work differently. Some people want a really structured way of working. Other people want to just be like, constant moving, trying new things out. I think it's just about being adaptable to every person and every business being different, but knowing this is how I work. These are the things I require before I do the work. And these are the ways in which we can edit and adapt the work once it's produced to meet your goals.
So it's you stamping your needs on the situation, like you deciding who you want to work with. Is that how it works? Are there people you've said, I can't work with you, I don't want to work with you?
There are, it's a two-way street. So it's always understanding their needs first, because at the end of the day, they're going to be my client. But at the same time, it's a case of like, these are the parameters in which I work to be able to produce the best level of work. So I'll need certain amounts of information. I'll need certain things in order for me to complete my role. Obviously, I'm not working directly in their business. So, it's important that those things are established. Are there certain people I said no to or not wanting to work? I feel in a creative role, if you don't have to be passionate about everything you're writing about, but you need to have some sort of like vested interest in it in some way. So I get a lot of clients going, oh, this must sound really boring, you won't want to like do this or so. And I'm like, well, you think it's boring, but I find that area of business particularly interesting, and I'm going to have a nice, enjoyable time researching it. And it's at that stage where it's, well, how much do you want me to sort of get involved in the research side of it? How much information do you want me to provide me? It's more about understanding exactly the expectations of the client and how I can fit in and deliver the best work for them. And again, in some cases, I've spoken to a lot of copywriters about this. If people are being they have to allow for some like creative license to the copywriter, because in a lot of times people get really, really precious about content, or really, really hung up in things that they don't trust, sort of like, I'm not saying the expert opinion, but the person they're bringing in to help them, and it can make the process really, really difficult. So I suppose it's just, it's like any working relationship. It's, you have to sort of test the waters a little bit and see how it works. But I think so long as you're pretty clear about your ways of working and how you deliver your products, then it works, and you can make a good fit from the get-go.
Yeah, you see, I think the issue is that people, like, you've hit on the thing that I think, which is like businesses are ego-driven. Do you know what I mean? And people are quite precious about what goes on. And my frustration when I was running my business as an agency is I would go in and blow their tiny minds with the opportunity, and they would agree that they wanted to do something. And by the time I went back to nail down what we were actually going to do, they knew 100% exactly what was going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they weren't interested in what I was saying at all. So they are very ego-driven, and they are quite precious. But I think the other thing that goes on is people don't understand the investment required to really produce really good, useful, interesting copy. And they don't understand the value of it either. Mm-hmm. The standard of copy, I would say, I haven't got a percentage, but I do like to make up percentages. Let's say 76% of copy, business copy, is appalling. Because it is so vanilla. And I can see, like we're talking about the AI, I can see the AI just coming in and taking that whole raft of people out. So you're literally going to need to be the 2 or 3 people out of 10 that are actually good at this and actually applying some intelligence, emotion, engagement, interaction. You know, you're going to have to be those people. So I think it is appalling. And people see that and they just think, well, that's good enough then. If that's what 70%, 76% of what goes on in the world is as poor as that, we don't need anything better. So what's the point of that? I think the point of that then is that you really do need to qualify, and you really do need to lay down your position and say, no, if this is going to work, then this is what I need. Do you
I
find that?
think it's about valuing yourself as well. And I see this conversation, especially amongst freelancers, because it can be a real tough gig to be able to position yourself and not just say yes to everything, because obviously you are working from job to job a lot of the time. And, you know, it can be very easy to just go, oh, I'll take any job I can get for the sake of it. And you can let a lot of people or clients devalue a little bit because they go, well, I can get this cheaper elsewhere, or I can use an AI for it, or this will be better, or I could write this better myself. And it's like, well, actually, if you're in a position where you're having a discovery call with a potential client, or you're selling your services and you're making money out of what you do, you have to value the skill and the time that it has taken for you to master that skill, and the time it's taking you to continue to master that skill. And I think by setting those, it's almost like boundary setting and sort of showing like how much the work you put into the work you produce. Like, it isn't just a case of, oh, well, answer a load of questions, I'm going to go chuck it in an AI tool and then send it back to you and pretend I wrote it, or I'm just going to create something and regurgitate it and throw it out to you. I think establishing a really good relationship with your clients early on and trying to understand their business and showing that, look, I go beyond the page. Essentially, I'm really thinking and getting invested in your business. I want to be a bit of an extension of your team. With a few clients, I am literally pretty much part of their team. They're all coming to me asking me questions, and I love that, because then you really genuinely understand what these guys are trying to achieve, what these people are trying to get at. And that 76%, whatever it might be, probably don't do that. The AI won't do that, and there's a reason why they won't have businesses, or that won't be in business after a while. And I think you have to strive to be the top 10% constantly, and never devalue yourself in comparison to that. Like, always sell yourself to the right value.
Yeah. Are you questioning my statistic? Are you saying it's not 76
I know,
percent? Is that what you're
I'm
saying?
liking the statistic. I was just like, is it the 76? I like it. It sounds about factual. It sounds
It
about
sounds,
right.
yeah, maybe 76, 77, somewhere around there, I think, definitely. You're 100% right. It's positioning in the first instance. So your marketing should be doing some qualification for you, and your marketing does, because your marketing is writing the standard of copy that already distinguishes itself from the 76%, which is absolute junk. And then I think 100%, the other thing you're saying is right, and this is what business owners need to know, is, for me, the point of doing marketing is to have enough opportunities that you can start selecting the ones that you want to get involved in and the ones that you don't. And you can start thinking, actually, am I going to add value in this situation, or am I not? Is this going to be stressful? Are they going to give me the things I need? Can I really be interested enough in their product and service? And I think there aren't enough businesses who understand that, that you should be saying no to the majority of stuff that gets offered to you, because you can't be all things for all people. Okay, good. Excellent. I'm interested in this idea of personal brand, because people are
Mm-hmm.
talking about this a lot, and I don't really know what it is or how you go about shaping that. And is it where you just, because people call these engagement posts. Have you heard this? Like, I spoke to someone who said, oh, every 8th post is an engagement post. So it'll be something like some teary memory of when he got married in 1978, or when his daughter was born underweight, or I'm saying he, or when she found out that she was, I don't know, whatever it might be. This what I think is over personalization, not in terms of having your name on the thing, but over personal in terms of it's just over personal. It feels to me like very often like conversations that go on around a water cooler. You can correct me. Is that what personal brand is? Is being overly disclosing? How do you say it? Overly sharing, oversharing.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
No, I don't think so. I think the term personal brand, again, it's just a buzz term. I think what personal brand refers to is, in the way a business, you can very clear cut, like, oh, that's what that brand is. We know what Coca-Cola looks like. We know what Apple looks like. We know what that feels like. It always has a feel about it. We can tell that personality behind it. I think what's shifting now is, again, it's a social media thing. People want to be thought leaders and everything around it. Personal brand is trying to emulate that in some way, but really truly at the heart of it is just how you show up every day. Everybody has a personal brand. It is who we are. It's, again, that authentic self, but the authenticism, I don't even have to say that properly. It's overdone and it's far stretched out. What people are trying to achieve is being able to have the confidence to speak online or speak in spaces, in the right spaces, and speak in the right ways. So a lot of the times when we talk personal brand, obviously you're thinking business leaders, business owners, people who have something, an agenda so much, like, you know, they are an advocate for something. They want to speak a little bit more openly about that. And what people now are trying to do is understand like how to do that effectively, as opposed to just with a bit more strategy, I suppose, rather than just spewing things out online. And what you'll see as a result of that is a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to tell my, what I call the X Factor sob story, to try and get people engaged with me and talking to me, and basically to get attention, because a lot of social media is attention. But the personal brand side of things, it's because it's an effective tool. If people buy from people, isn't that the biggest saying in sales? Like, now what people are realizing is people are sick of seeing brands. They want to see people behind it. And a lot of the time, these people who have been in these high-powered roles or running their own businesses and things like that, they don't actually know effectively how to communicate openly to the world. And personal brand is, in my opinion, becoming this way of being able to actually market yourself properly and understand what is it that you're interested in, what are your values, what do you actually want to talk about. And again, that comes back to the oversharing too much, putting too much information out in the world because you feel you should. Whereas actually it's thinking, what value am I trying to offer as a person? There'll be goals involved in that. There'll be things you're wanting to achieve from that. And it's just being a little bit more structured in the way you approach it. But I think now, again, everyone wants to have a personal brand and everyone wants to be an online creator and everybody wants to be an influencer of some kind, that it's kind of losing its meaning as to what the purpose behind it is.
Yes, you've nailed it again. It's attention, and it's the X Factor sob story, and that's the problem. There probably isn't enough space for all of the personal brands that want to exist. Do you know what I mean? There should be some sort of qualification. And you're right, everyone wants to be an influencer, but nobody really knows what it is that
Nobody
they're
knows
driving.
thing. I think for me, it's like everybody wants this spotlight, and we're all guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of it in some way because that's just human nature. We like to feel relevant. But I think a lot of, and I've had to ask myself this over the years because I grew up in the age of social media. It's like attention, attention. Oh my God, I've got something to say. But now what we're trying to think about is, well, what is it that you're actually trying to achieve? If you want to go on LinkedIn and start posting on LinkedIn and you go, oh, here's an engagement post because I know people will respond to it. Well, fine, but what's the point in that? So you get a load of comments and you get a load of what we call vanity metrics. You might get the followers, but what after that? What was the point in it? Is it just that initial attention, or are you looking to try and build awareness about your business and what you do, about the people you help, about the goals you're trying to achieve, about the things you can educate people on the things that you've learned that might be of value or useful to other people? You know, a bit like this podcast. Like there's lots of good content, and a lot of that comes under personal brand now because that's how people are building their voices. And we've got more platforms for people to be able to talk openly, a lot more diversity, a lot more inclusion, a lot more people who wouldn't have had those platforms before. But with all things, these things often get saturated by too many people trying to achieve the same thing, and then you lose those, you know, like everybody's doing it, so what's relevant anymore? Or everyone's trying to emulate the next person, but they're not actually creating anything sort of original or valuable. And it's just all the same loops. But amongst that, personal brand, I think, is a great thing, and I think there are some fantastic people out there doing amazing things. And it's such a, or if used correctly, you can achieve amazing things, and it can be organically achieved as well. But that comes from being really understanding what you're putting out into the world and why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for, because it's not about you. It's about the people you're supposedly trying to help, or the impact you're trying to create.
Yes. The only thing that I would disagree with there is that I don't think there is anything in human nature that requires us to have attention. I think this is a whole new level of corruption that's just come along, and all of this all of this attention has become available, and now for some reason it's what we all want. I think that's what's going on.
Condition of society, not so much human nature. Like, it's not coming back to it, but like I would say it is a condition of modern society that we all feel we should, whether we want to or whether we don't. I think it's hard not like, I don't even think people consciously do it, but it's hard to not be surrounded by everything all the time, where you don't feel like, well, should I be doing something, or do I want to be doing so? Do I want to be putting things out there? What should I be putting out in the world? That I think everybody feels, a lot of people, say everybody's a generalization, but a lot of people feel the need to do something without really understanding the why of doing it.
Yes. So for you, that is the main thing behind a personal brand, is the why, is the motivation, is like actually laying out the objectives. This is, I want to present myself like this for this good reason.
Why? I mean, I wouldn't profess to be any sort of personal brand expert. The things that I create, like content and things, can help create personal brands, can help be one of the tools in which people do this. I think personal brand, again, it's a subheading to just who we are. It's just how we show up.
Yes.
But that's fundamentally what it is. I think a lot of the times I think that's everything in life, isn't it? What's the why behind the things we're doing? And I think people find a lot more happiness in understanding a why, or a lot more passion and motivation in what they're trying to achieve when they understand the why behind what they're doing.
Excellent. Good. Okay, so here's the last question before we get on to question number 3. Somewhere in your profile it says there will always be swearing, not necessarily in your copy. So the question is, what is appropriate? And I can short circuit this process a little bit, if you like. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Because I think I've shied away from things that I thought were inappropriate. Like my jargon busting thing is called, it's called What the Fuck? I'm not going to do it now. I'm not going to shy away now. And for the first 6 episodes, I did that. And then a handful of people came to me and they were like, well, why are you swearing? But to be fair, it wasn't my audience. It was like my dad and my housemate. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and then you start thinking, okay, well, maybe we're going to be suppressed in the search engines because we're swearing, or we're not going to get the airtime on YouTube or whatever. Because I've also got, so there's that, was supposed to be that whole series. Now, my audience for that is 18 to 28 or something. So they will get that all day, every day, and they'll enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Like, my audience isn't my dad, who's 74. But I shied away from that. I've got another thing, which I think is brilliant, is a presentation called Present Like a Motherfucker, because I think that's how you should present. But I'm going to write a book, and I really think I want to swear. So the question is, for you, is what's appropriate and what's not appropriate in your estimation? I'm not going to accuse you of being an expert in swearing.
Well, that's the great unanswerable question, isn't it? Because we live in an age where it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you sit on this sort of thinking. You're always going to offend somebody over something.
Yes.
And I think swearing is I don't care who you are, everybody swears in some way or some form, and some people will preach, oh, swearing doesn't belong here or it doesn't belong there, and it's kind of like, how can we police sort of our own worlds? And I think when it comes to I think you have to, one, be confident in it. to it be natural within what you're trying to achieve. I think a lot of people are trying to now like push boundaries by maybe like adding a bit of swearing to copy, or trying to be a bit cheeky, or like put things in places where it just doesn't feel comfortable. If it fits within your personality when you're writing a book, or the way you speak, or the things you do, or how you act, or it makes sense, and you can kind of like, not that you should have to justify anything to anyone, but if it makes sense and it belongs there and it feels like it belongs for you and for your audience, then absolutely go ahead with it. You're always going to find someone who's going to go, don't do that, or you shouldn't have done that, or that's not appropriate. And, you know, like, all hate is marketing at the end of the day, but you can't please everybody. I think as Ricky Gervais say, just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right. And I think we should be allowed to express ourselves a bit. And I think it's a little bit, personally, old-fashioned to be always been like, oh, swearing's inappropriate, or swearing's not a sign of intelligence, or, but I get it all the time as a woman, or women shouldn't swear, and I just say fuck off. I don't care. Like, and as I've put in my copy, like, this is part of my personality, but it makes sense when I write. When it comes out of my mouth, it sounds natural, it fits with the brand. But am I then going to go and put it into like some charity work I'm doing for, like, I don't know, it's the sea turtles, and start putting swearing in the copy? No, it wouldn't make sense to it. So I think the boundary is just understanding where does it belong for you, and if it works, then fuck everybody else.
Yeah, fuck them. So here's the thing that I've always said. Like, when I was running my business properly, I did a lot of training in the UK. And I would say at the beginning, like, you get the best of me if I swear. I don't want to slow down to think about, is the language I'm using appropriate or not? But also, it's serious. Do you know what I mean? I'm serious about this stuff. And what I used to say to people is, because I do some work in the Middle East now. So that, I think, but they don't particularly mind either. So I think that is a consideration, is the way you present yourself, I suppose. But what I used to say is, like, when I was in sales and I had customers, I wanted to be on swearing terms with my customers, because if they're having a fucking problem, I want to fucking know. Do you know what I mean? I don't want them to have to sit down and think, oh, how do I hedge this with Martin? And it used to be exactly like that, you know, and I was doing a better job for my customers because I knew when the shit hit the fan, they'd be on the phone and it wouldn't be diluted. It wouldn't be watered down. It would be, this is the actual problem, you know. So I think that's interesting. The problem I have is there is no synonym for motherfucker. And I think when you present, you really want to present like a motherfucker. Do you know what I mean? How else can you say that? There is no other way of saying that.
Down with something else, or isn't, is there? It's going to have that same impact. I think
No.
I look at it,
or even means that. What is there that means that?
I think as long as, like, your culture, just don't discriminate against anyone. Don't use any slurs which you just absolutely know aren't acceptable. And, like, you know, general swearing, as long as you're not trying to hurt anybody with it, you know, or direct it at somebody in a malicious intent, go for it. I think, you know, we need to have creative license to be who we are, and if swearing's a part of your vocabulary as much as it is mine, then it makes sense to use it. And if you found a term like motherfucker, then that's the thing that works, and it wouldn't make any justice for you to try and change that. I mean, it wouldn't work for you, and that's what sets that brand apart, because that says so much about you without even knowing much about it, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I think people they forget how much power they can do with these things if they just have a bit of fun.
Yeah. So I've gone now to dictionary.com to look for synonyms of motherfucker. And what they're suggesting is ass, like the American ass, dumbass, idiot, bastard, prick, asshole, fuck up, shithead, and jackass. So that makes my point. There is no synonym for motherfucker. That is... Yeah, that's exactly what I want to say. So I don't know, but I do have to think about where my work comes from. So maybe we should stop swearing.
I'll be quiet now. Sorry, guys.
Okay, good. Excellent. So that brings us then to question number 3. Question number 3 is, and this is like the quick fire round. So if you can tell us in like a minute or 2 minutes, because we will chop this up and put it on TikTok, What is your recommendation for anyone who is looking to get better at producing copy?
Just write. I've always said like the best way to become a better writer is to keep writing. Pay attention to copy that's around you. It's absolutely everywhere, on the side of a bus, on billboards, on the underground, in the tube, in your magazines. It's everywhere. Read, then try to emulate, then try to make it better. And just write and write and write, and don't use an AI tool.
Okay, super cool. I think you came well in within the minute there. Brilliant. But I think you're right. I think you have to do it, and you have to open up. There's a word for that, isn't there, where you start doing things and you start seeing it everywhere and you get better at it. Like, I like to take photographs, and when I'm in it, when I'm on it, then I just see a photograph everywhere I look. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's that, whatever that word is. I don't think the word is motherfucker. I think it might be a different word. Okay, cool. So I think that's a brilliant recommendation. Thank you very much. Okay, good. So that takes us then to question number 4. We are piling through the questions now. Question number 4. What do you recommend people read, or what content do you recommend that people consume? Are you a reader or are you a content consumer?
I'm a bit of both. I mean, all the stuff I'm reading at the moment is mainly uni driven, so it's been a while since I've read anything that's particularly in the marketing space. But I think just reading as a task anyway, will help a lot, because when it flexes your vocabulary, it gives you a better sense for voice. Reading different genres of things, whether it be fiction, whether they be non-fiction, self-help books, business books, things within like subjects that you're interested in, like get some variety in there, because when you're starting to write as a copywriter, variety like is really the spice of it all. And the more different tones and the different voices you can engage with, the more you'll be able to sort of flex that skill yourself. Content wise though, I mean, I'm a massive consumer of online stuff. It makes sense to the stuff I do, but like TikTok I think is an absolutely brilliant tool in terms of like quick form learning, quick skills. YouTube, there's so much information out there. And like I've mentioned before, like I have ADHD, so sitting down and actually reading something for a long amount of time, sometimes looking at a book can be difficult, but you can learn so much in a few TikTok videos or a few YouTube videos, that basically if you can get good at searching for it and finding the right creators, you're going to find answers and ways in which you can improve your skills all on your own.
Fantastic. And I think that's right. The reason I've started asking people this is because I don't read anything like enough anymore. And I've only started really doing it now. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do everything a little bit more mindfully. So now, like lots of people who come on have written books. So now I'm making a point of reading their books, and then I'm doing like a review of their book, like a book review. Now, I haven't done a book review since I was at school, so they're rubbish. But there is something useful in taking that to the next point, is like, I am reading this with a view to talking about it. Like at the end of this, I should be able to talk about it. So I think that's really useful. Yeah, and I think you're right. TikTok is interesting because I think you get different. I think the thing about TikTok is the algorithm is really good, is what I'm hearing. So you do get what you want from TikTok, you know. So
You do, and it's becoming a bit of it's really optimized for search as well now. So it's been kind of challenging Google a little bit, because like the younger generation are using it more as a search engine than they would Google.
Yes.
If you search now, you know, sort of top tips for copywriting and such, you're going to find a whole plethora of information surrounding copywriting, and whether you like that information or not, it's all different viewpoints. And again, it's a quick way to sort of like pique your interest. I'd also say get yourself on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a really great place for different voices and different opinions from all a broad spectrum of businesses. But also you're looking at how people write content all the time, how people convey different messages and stories, and yeah, everything in between.
Excellent. I think that's really true. And I think what the platforms do is they reward the new thing. You know, so like you say, TikTok is challenging Google and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So they've come up with Reels and YouTube and Shorts on YouTube. So I'm hoping, because we're just about to launch ourselves, this is the plan for next year, is to clip all these up and put them out as in short form. So I'm hoping that we get rewarded for that. I hope we reach people who will benefit from the content that we're putting together. Okay, super cool. We're almost at the end. I need to check in with you and find out how you are feeling about your experience of having appeared on the Talk Marketing show. How have you found this experience?
I feel great. I've had a really, really great time. I think you like surprised by how much I'm like, oh, I'm actually a real copywriter, but it can be it's nice to speak with a fellow marketer and sort of like hear yourself talk about the thing you do day in, day out. Because again, I'm a solo freelancer, so you forget how much you're kind of learning on the regular, or how much you have to say about the subjects, or how sort of interested you are. So it's been really cool getting to sort of discuss with you all your different opinions, and especially the AI stuff, because I was getting a little bit frustrated about that myself. So
yeah,
it's been a really good experience.
Yeah. The thing is, I think, about the AI stuff, like you've also resolved mine, because like 2 months ago, I hadn't seen anything from AI that particularly impressed me. And then all of a sudden, these images started coming through. Did you see them? Where you put in like a sentence and it comes up with this beautiful image.
Yeah.
And then I saw that Canva were doing this. We did the news today and we were talking about that today. And so I really also started thinking, well, maybe this is it. Well, maybe this is where AI becomes useful. But I think what you need to do if you're a copywriter and somebody says, look, it's either you or AI, you need to be prepared to say, look, if that's the way you want to present your business, then why are you even speaking to me? Goodbye. Do you know what I mean? That needs to be the position. Because I think you're right. There is absolutely no way that AI can be delivering the value that you clearly do through your copy. From my experience of reading your copy, it can't. Good.
I think it's one of those, you get what you pay for, don't you? If you want to pay for an AI to do it, then by all means. But if you really want the quality, then I implore people to actually go and get people who have studied, or people who have spent years like mastering a craft in it, because they will be able to add value.
Yeah, 100%. Good. I'm going to reach out to my mate and ask him what the hell he thinks he's playing at. Why would you market the fact that you are using AI to produce your social media? Essentially what you're saying, you're communicating is, I don't care enough about you, the audience, prospective customer, to do this myself, or even pay someone who's qualified to do it. Do you know what I mean? I'm getting a computer to do this for cheap.
Yeah, exactly. It just seems like, just look a bit lazy to me, but it's kind of selling yourself short at the same time.
Yeah, and really just saying to your customers and your prospective customers, I don't care about you. Do you know what I mean? I can get this done by a computer, so I'm going to do that. Good. Of course, there is a reason that I've asked you about your experience. I've checked in to make sure that you've enjoyed your experience of being on the Talk Marketing show, because now what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you to throw a couple of people under the bus who you can introduce me to, who you think might enjoy also to be part of this Talk Marketing experience. So do you have some people in mind?
I have one person. I could throw a couple of other people under the bus, though.
Do it.
The first person is going to be someone I work with a little bit, but will be able to expand massively on the whole world of LinkedIn, personal brand ghostwriting, and that's Luke Matthews. He's a brilliant person, really lovely chap. I'll link you in with him, and sorry, Luke, for this, but he'll be a really good guest for you to have on, and he's does a lot of fun content on LinkedIn and building his brand on there, and sort of taking the piss out of the seriousness behind it all, and sort of joking around. So I think it'd be a really, really fun guest for you. Who else could I chuck under? I'm going to chuck my friend Jack under the bus. Jack Kelly, he's an emerging, he's a web designer, but he's kind of finding his feet in the world and trying to build his confidence a little bit. He already works with a number of clients. We work on a few things together as well. But I think he's a real creative, and I think it'd be really interesting just to have him on the show, and I'd like to just see him sort of step out of his comfort zone a little bit.
Fantastic. Well. And his name is Pelly, is it? P-E-L-L-Y?
Jack Kelly.
Jack Kelly.
Like girl.
Okay, super cool. So that's two. That's all I need from you. Thank you so much for that. And if you can just link me in with them, then I will pick it up from them. I think, did Manpreet do that, or did I have to reach out? I think he did it by email, and then I reached out to you on LinkedIn. I think that's how it happened.
I think I just watched the podcast and was like, oh my, at best. I think you messaged me. No. So
Okay, super cool. Excellent. So now the really good news is that we got to the end. How do you feel about that?
Good that I don't have to keep talking for much longer.
Fantastic. Excellent. So all we need to do now is say goodbye for the sake of anyone who's still listening, and then I'll stop the recording and we will say goodbye like normal human beings. This has been really, really cool to speak to somebody who isn't decades in. Very often I speak to somebody and they've got 30 or 40. Somebody had 50 years experience. They were running marketing agencies in London in the 70s, you know. So it's really refreshing and cool to speak to somebody who is, are you a millennial? Is that what you are?
I think technically I'm 1993 I was born, so I think I fall into the cusp of millennial.
Okay, so you're a millennial. I might have had one other millennial, yeah. But I'm really interested to get different perspectives. And also, I think you bring such a fresh perspective to the way that you do your work that makes it really interesting. I've spoken to other copywriters, but they're much more conservative probably than you are. So I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for being here to have this conversation with me.
Thank you so much. I've had the best time.
You are very welcome. Thank you for taking the time to check out this episode of the Talk Marketing series. If you found this interesting and useful, you can check out the Talk Marketing playlist here, and this is something that YouTube thinks you might find useful. And if you haven't yet, please take a second to like, share, subscribe, and comment, because that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey.